Glasgow is a city divided by football.
In the atmosphere, you can't hear Celtic.
And an angry exchange there between McAvenny and Woods, and here's trouble now.
You look at derbies worldwide, and this fixture means more than what it does in a lot of other countries.
And Neil Lennon and Ali McCoy are squaring up now.
This is Ibrox Stadium, home of Rangers Football Club, the blue half of this intense rivalry.
It's always nice to beat Celtic, to be honest.
And this is Celtic Park, home of Celtic Football Club, one half of Scottish football's biggest derby, perhaps one of the most intense and passionate rivalries anywhere in the world.
Best atmosphere in world football. You want to get a better atmosphere.
Celtic versus Rangers is the fixture that's dominated Scottish football for almost 140 years. The two clubs are by far the most successful in Scotland and attract fanatical support the length and breadth of the country. But they are both based in Glasgow, with their stadiums just 5 miles apart. They have been locked in a never-ending battle for supremacy ever since the newly formed Celtic played their first ever game against their near neighbours 137 years ago. The bragging rights are always up for grabs every time they meet. Rangers fans proudly laid claim to having won the most league titles when they clinched number 55 in 2021. But Celtic matched that incredible tally in May 2025 as the struggle between the historic clubs took yet another twist. However, the intense rivalry between these two clubs doesn't end when the final whistle blows. Supporters of both clubs live and breathe for their teams. But there is also a darker side to the Old Firm. Religious sectarianism has cast a shadow over the game that lingers to this day. With Rangers traditionally supported by Protestants and Celtic by Catholics, Old Firm Day has been littered with countless acts of bigotry and violence from fans throughout the decades. Yet, there is no consensus on the origin of the term. Many trace the phrase Old Firm back to the very earliest days, when a reporter at their first ever match remarked that they looked like Old Firm friends, and there was a belief that fierce rivalry between two teams in Glasgow could be mutually beneficial to the two businesses. Rangers were founded first in 1872 and established themselves as one of Scottish football's elite, with historically support coming from the Protestant community. Celtic were founded in 1888 on the basis of helping to feed the poor Irish immigrants in Glasgow, who were mostly Catholic. That religious divide has led to decades of hate.
When you're standing in the terrace and how big it is, or you think, and then only when you get in the pitch and you're part of that I live in it. And the atmosphere, you can't hear Celtic, you can't talk to normally you can talk to your teammates, but it's not, the noise is just incredible.
It means everything. As I said, looking back at the time, you just feel as if, right, when's the next one going to come? It didn't come for me, but to score, to see so many Rangers fans delighted and joyful, and that's going to be the case for a period of time after it, meant everything. But I think when you're part of a team that's been winning, and as long as your team wins, you're all right. I mean, that's one of the times where I wasn't really that bothered if you scored or not, whereas every other game I was fuming if I didn't. But the most important thing was the team winning.
Look at these angry scenes on the terraces. This is the end of a stirring cup final, but now it has cascaded into violence, the kind of violence we didn't think would happen and didn't want to happen. And here comes another charge by the Rangers fans. Well, this is one of the worst scenes of violence we've seen here at Hampden Park. Bottles, cans and missiles being thrown, and it's a pitched battle out there.
In a game of such magnitude, incidents arise that can never be forgotten. But perhaps 8 stick out more than any, and we'll look at them all. The 1980 Scottish Cup final saw Celtic lift the famous old trophy thanks to a 1-0 win at Hampden Park over their rivals. But that has almost been forgotten due to a bloody battle on the pitch between both sets of fans that led to repercussions that are still being felt to this very day. Drunk rival fans scrapped on the field, threw beer bottles at each other and targeted innocent bystanders. Police deployed horses onto the pitch, but even the horses weren't safe from the shocking violence that's led to an alcohol ban that has never been lifted.
1980 Cup final, I am in the house watching tea time sports scene, and it was quite remarkable. The whole thing was just, people then saw like the Hibs Rangers Cup final when Hibs fans come on, and it stopped short of being, there was a bit of trouble, but we got away with that one. But Rangers Celtic then, of course, there was still alcohol on the ground, so bottles are flying. A guy who I got to know very well, Eric Craig, a photographer for the Daily Record, got smashed in the head with a bottle. People were hitting police horses, and it was just, the whole thing was bonkers. And watched it on TV and just thinking, wow, this is going to change things, and it did, because from then on, no more alcohol at football, and the game changed an awful lot.
It wasn't just off the pitch that tempers were lost. In October 1987, 4 players were charged with breach of the peace for their conduct during a match at Ibrox and had to appear in court, with 2, Chris Woods and Terry Butcher, convicted and fined. Frank McAvennie was the only Celtic player involved, and due to his long blonde hairstyle and the involvement of another Rangers star, Graham Roberts, the incident has forever been known as Goldilocks and the Three Bears.
The goalkeepers will tell you, I used to hit them at the early doors because you get away with it. And I used to just knock them in the goal. And basically, if the referee gave, I hit Chris. And the referee gave a corner, which I could stop laughing. So Chris wasn't happy, as you can imagine. And next time I went for the ball, he sort of tried to elbow me. And it was handbags at 10 paces. The referee lost the plot. If he'd have got me and Chris and says, look, cut it out, this is, that would have been it. Because, listen, we'll kick lumps at each other, but we're all friends when it comes to it. And in the heat of the moment, that should have been it. And Big Terry come over and shoved me, and the referee I said to Terry, stop it, you're a captain, that would have been it. But he didn't stamp his authority, the referee, and he came over and he tried to stamp his authority in the wrong way. He sent me off and sent Chris off, which the crowd went mad,
Did you have many people coming up to you in the kind of weeks and months after that, asking you about the incident?
Well, yeah, a lot of Celtic supporters, were saying that was the catalyst for the season, because the year before we get shoved around and we weren't getting shoved around. That wasn't intention, obviously, but I just like hitting goalkeepers.
Both clubs have made countless big signings over the years, but this is undoubtedly the biggest transfer in the entire history of Scottish football. Rangers manager Graham Souness and new chairman David Murray revolutionised the club when they came in 1986, and they were determined to end a decades-old unwritten rule that the club refused to sign Catholics. So Rangers shocked the world when they snatched Mo Johnston, and what made it even more surprising and remarkable was that he had already been paraded as a Celtic player and was about to complete a stunning return to his former club. But far bigger than that was the end of this sectarian signing policy.
The Maurice Johnston transfer was incredible, broken by the Scottish Sun at the time. Graham Souness had always had in his mind that he wanted Maurice Johnston. He was always enormously impressed by his performances on the pitch, but also by his work rate. He knew there was an opportunity to get him, even though Mo had posed in that silly jumper with Billy McNeil after Celtic had won the cup final. And he saw that little opportunity and he grasped it.
I heard about it whispered before it, but it's I knew Mo quite well, so yeah. It was a surprise. It was a surprise.
Can you imagine if it happened now?
Well, they were talking to me about it, weren't they? They spoke to me. Graham spoke to me about going, and I understood what Graham was wanting to do. He was wanting to break the divide down and all that. It wasn't going to happen. It's Glasgow, and unfortunately, Mo went and listen. He went and joined a good team. I think the most important thing that happened to get 42 with Celtic strip on, then he signed for Rangers. If he didn't do that, it may have been different. People might still have been hurt, but it wouldn't have been as bad. But the fact that Mo got the strip, and then jumped ship, and he went to the game in the cup final on the bus, met Celtic before he'd signed, and then jumped ship. So, listen, it was strange. People do strange things.
That day in the Blue Room at Ibrox, when the door opened, there were still people, I think, thought it wasn't going to be Mo Johnston. thought it was going to be somebody else. I think John Sheridan, Republic of Ireland midfielder, had been mentioned as a possible signing. And a friend of mine, Alan Ferguson, was the man who opened the door. Souness, I think David Holmes, the chairman at the time, and in came Maurice Johnson. And it was an incredible moment in Scottish football.
I was in the Scottish Sun office writing about it. The best day ever in history, and you know, as a story, the way things go now with social media and agents and leaks and, you know, fan journalism and all that stuff, you'll never get another story like this. In those days, on a Sunday night, the only place you could get a drink after hours in the Paisley area was at the airport hotel, the old Excelsior Hotel, now the Holiday Inn. And these boys came in, they were all Celtic fans. Oh, wee man, what's in the paper tomorrow? I said, I can't tell you. I cannot tell you. And then, oh, come on, must be a signing for us. I says, well, let's wait and see. And we phoned the office. The presses had started running, so all bets were off. And the way out the door, I went to the boys and said, by the way, Maurice Johnson's signing for Rangers in the morning. And they were like, aye, very good, very good, very good. Okay, believe what you like. And next day, the story breaks, and you have that little hour in the morning where you think, what if it's not true? And of course it is true. It was always going to be true, and it was just a brilliant feeling of the paper breaking something that absolutely nobody else believed was true. You know, not months of speculation. It just went, there's a story. It was amazing.
Back on the pitch, the violence showed no signs of ending. During a league title decider in 1999, referee Hugh Dallas was hit by a coin thrown from the Celtic end at Parkhead. He fell to the ground with blood pouring from the wound. 3 fans were arrested after running onto the field, and another fell from the top tier of the stands. On the park, 3 players were shown red cards.
It was the end of Dick Advocat's first season at Rangers. Celtic were in a bit of turmoil, and it's a very rare occasion where a league title can be decided in an Old Firm game. Rangers went there and won the game easily, and it was just one of those games. It was almost a sort of perfect storm. It was a 6 o'clock kick-off on a Sunday night. Supporters had been out all day. There was this anticipation that Rangers would go there and would win the title at Celtic Park, and people lost their heads. Hugh Dallas was struck by a 50-pence piece, blooded. It was a terrible image for Scottish football and around the world. Terrible image. Rangers, having won the title, made the rather rash decision to have a huddle on the pitch at Celtic Park. A lot of things happened that shouldn't have happened.
At Ibrox, there was some irritation that the victory, which clinched them the Premiership trophy, had been overshadowed by such bad crowd behaviour, and a strong denial of the accusation that Rangers players' celebrations had inflamed the situation.
After the game, almost all the Celtic fans were gone. It was in the corner, in front of 6,000 Rangers people. What I said, Celtic people were already out of the stadium.
And Neil Lennon and Ali McQuaid are squaring up now.
In March 2011, 2 of the biggest names in Scottish football went head to head. Literally. Celtic manager Neil Lennon and Rangers assistant manager Alan McCoist both had to be separated by police officers after a furious touchline bust-up.
That was a Scottish Cup replay, I think. The first game had been a 2-2 at Ibrox. Celtic were down to 10 men. That was the day that Bruni was invented, when he scored and celebrated in front of El Hadj Diouf. So tempers rose. I think my dear friend Mark Wilson maybe scored the goal in the replay. I think a couple of Rangers players were sent off. There was that confrontation between McCoist and Lennon in the touchline. I'm not sure you would have wanted to get between them, I have to say, at that stage. Alex Salmond, who was then First Minister, the late Alex Salmond, was calling for a summit the next day. Such was the furore over the scenes on that Wednesday night at Celtic Park. People do lose all sense of proportion when they're in that circus, they're in that pantomime, they're in that bubble that is the Old Firm game.
It was a fracas that had the whole nation talking and has forever left fans wondering exactly what was said. But legendary Rangers manager Walter Smith seemed to be the only person in Scottish football completely unfazed by all the furore.
He's 6 armed, don't he? I didn't see them all, actually, to be quite honest. As you know, I'm always reasonably quick up the the tunnel, so I didn't see what happened.
No, I think Ali and Neil had words, and it went on a little bit from there. But there's a lot at stake, and can understand it from a certain extent.
Just 2 days after that crazy touchline rammy with McCoist, Celtic boss Lenny was sent a bomb in the post. The two perpetrators of that crime were later jailed for 5 years each. It was a truly shocking turn of events that outraged the football world and beyond.
On Friday the 4th of March 2011, a suspect package addressed to Mr Neil Lennon, the manager of Celtic Football Club, was intercepted by Royal Mail staff at the sorting office in Saltcoats. I can confirm that they were designed to cause real harm to the person who opened them. Sending these types of packages through the post is a despicable and cowardly act. Whoever has done this has not only put the person that the package was addressed to in danger, but they have also put a large number of mailroom staff in harm's way.
Celtic manager Neil Lennon says he's lived with Old Firm tensions for 10 years, but the recent threats will not drive him away from Parkhead.
I don't want to say you get used to it, because you never do. It's been with me for my time as a player, my time as a coach, and now my time as a manager. But it's not going to deter me from doing what I want to do. For me, this is the greatest privilege in my life. It's not because of my aggressive behaviour on the pitch anymore. A lot was said about that when I played, and I think we all know the reasons why these things are happening now. And it's good that people are talking about it, and hopefully we'll get something done about it.
Were you ever fearful, Neil? I mean, amid all the death threats and the bullet and the bomb in the post, were you ever fearful in your private moments at that particular time?
When I got attacked in the street, that was
in the West End.
Yeah, couldn't remember anything about that, so that was a worry. That was obviously, you wake up in the hospital, you're like,
you were unconscious, weren't you?
Yeah,
on the
ground. So that was the only time really when you worry about that.
And
I wasn't even the manager then. I was only first team coach. So that was a concern.
After decades of red-hot derby showdowns, the fixture suddenly disappeared. Rangers had entered financial meltdown, which led to administration, then ultimately liquidation and relegation to the 3rd Division.
I've spoken to the manager, the staff and supporters representatives this afternoon, and I've outlined the position. This is a difficult day for Rangers, but we'll emerge with a fitter and stronger club from this. Thank you very much.
Clearly, starting again from the bottom league is not ideal and makes the task of rebuilding Rangers a longer one, but the SFL was placed, in my opinion, in an impossible situation, and I totally respect the decision.
HMRC paralysed the club. That's what they did. Okay, I'm responsible, I'm in charge. But they put in costs, fines, and them were for us running an illegal tax scheme. That's what they said. So when we handed the club, I don't use the word handed briefly, there was a £75 million HMRC liability they thought hanging over us. It then became greater because Craig White didn't pay the bills. But I find it so annoying, and it's not been picked up. The final settled amount on that 75 million, they admitted, the HMRC, it wasn't an illegal tax scheme, was 33 million. If they had been open and honest that it could be negotiated at the time, everything else wouldn't have needed to happen. We could have handled that.
Yeah. And there would have been more potential buyers coming to your door.
Of course they would.
To try and take Rangers.
They sterilised the club. They just put it away because it put people off.
But by season 2020-2021, the Ibrox club had most definitely completed a comeback under the guidance of Liverpool legend Steven Gerrard. And what a season for Rangers to finally win their first top flight title for 10 years. Celtic had been clear favourites to win their 10th league title in a row, a feat that would have eclipsed the 9-in-a-row records jointly held by both clubs. But under incredible circumstances, with COVID still devastating the country, Celtic imploded as Rangers went unbeaten and clinched the championship. That led to a nasty hangover for Celtic supporters and for the city of Glasgow, after Rangers fans defied orders to obey COVID rules and held a wild city centre party that saw battles with cops and random acts of violence.
Yes, I think for anyone who was there, it will live long in the memory for all the wrong reasons. There was total chaos down at George Square and scenes of genuine violence, and some of the police officers who were involved were quite seriously injured on that occasion. And looking back through some of the reports, we've got a comment here from Callum Steele, who at the time was part of the Scottish Police Federation, and he said that officers in the west of Scotland had broken bones, they had lost teeth, some of them, and sustained multiple injuries as they faced what was for many the worst violence in their 20-odd years in policing, which gives you an insight into what it must have been like. You can see the most shocking footage of traffic cones being thrown, bottles, people swinging from lampposts, climbing up on monuments in George Square and just creating scenes of total carnage. But thankfully, police did manage to get on top of it, but not without numerous casualties and obviously many people who were arrested and taken into custody.
The Old Firm derby is known throughout the world specifically because of the rivalry between the fans. So what happens to this famous fixture when away fans are locked out? We found that out when the clubs became embroiled in tit-for-tat allegation cuts that eventually resulted in only home fans being allowed into the games for 2 years between 2023 and 2025.
So it made for a really eerie atmosphere in the ground. You know, if you were ever at one of the stadiums, and whether it was Rangers scoring at Celtic or Celtic scoring at Ibrox, you had silence, deathly silence, followed by boos. Instead of that sort of pocket of fans, and it used to be 8,000, then it was 800, then it was kind of 2,000 erupting, and it was such an eerie spectacle. And I think everyone, it takes a lot to get former players of Celtic and Rangers and fans of Celtic and Rangers united on one topic, but I think out there was a sense that we had to get back to getting bigger allocations. And then eventually I think there was a statement that both clubs had come to that agreement. It was going to be 2,500 there or thereabouts, away allocation at each ground. That didn't go smoothly to start with, and it was delayed slightly. But then in March 2025, finally, after a 2-year absence, away fans were let back into the fixture.
Brilliant. The atmosphere between the two clubs is brilliant. It's when the Celtic fans weren't allowed here, I found it dull. I found it sterile. You know, there was no atmosphere at all. You need that between the two sets of fans. There's always that rivalry.
It's long overdue. Should have happened. Well, it shouldn't have happened in the first place. Plus, I think they should get the full allocation again that we had originally. They get a better atmosphere.
For me, it's the biggest one in the world. You know, you look at the Milan and the English ones. There isn't one that touches the Scottish Old Firm, and you know, you want the fans there to experience it, good or bad.
I'm pleased about it because it definitely creates a much better atmosphere. Although it's lovely to be in there and it's full of Celtic fans at these games, you do miss the opposition's fans, definitely.
It's not perfect, it's not ideal. I think everybody would like to see a lot more, but it's going to be the new norm. And the colour and the atmosphere of all those fans, you can look through the old footage, is something that is just unfortunately going to belong in the past. The new normal is for the smaller allocation, but it's better than nothing.
We're under no doubts whatsoever that the Old Firm story has plenty more crazy twists and turns to come, and that it remains the wildest derby in all of world football.